Let's settle something right now. Did China invent the high-speed train? No. Did China invent the suspension bridge? No. Did China invent solar panels, the skyscraper, the electric vehicle, nuclear power? No, 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 and no. Every single one of those technologies was conceived, developed, and first built somewhere else. Japan, America, Europe. The credit belongs exactly where it has always belonged. Now here is the question that nobody is actually asking. The question that gets buried every single time this conversation comes up in comment sections, in debates, in news articles about China's rise. What did China do with all of them? Because here is what nobody prepared for. Here is the part that gets left out of every argument about who invented what and who deserves credit for what. The inventors built the idea. China built the idea at a scale, at a speed, and at a level of ambition that the original inventors never attempted, never funded, and in several cases openly said was not possible. You can copy a blueprint. You cannot copy the will to execute at full scale. That part has to come from somewhere else entirely. What you are about to see is not a list of things China built. It is a documented record of what happens when a civilization of 1.4 billion people decides that the first version of something is not the final version. That the question is never whether something can be built, only how fast, how big, and how far beyond the original the next version needs to go. By the end of this video, the word copied is going to feel like the most inadequate word in the English language. The train, Japan invented it, the Shinkansen, 1964. The Tokyo Olympics. A bullet train running at 200 kilometers per hour, and the entire world stopped and called it a miracle of modern engineering. France made it faster with the TGV in 1981, 300 kilometers per hour. Europe marveled. America studied it. A handful of countries built short lines. The technology sat largely unchanged in its ambition for the next 20 years. Then China entered the room. In 2008, China opened its first high-speed rail line. By 2024, according to China's National Railway Administration, China had over 45,000 kilometers of high-speed track in operation. Let that number land for a moment. 45,000 kilometers. The entire rest of the world combined, Japan, France, Germany, Spain, South Korea, every country that operates high-speed rail has roughly 20,000 kilometers between them. China has more than double that. Alone, the trains run at 350 kilometers per hour. They run with a punctuality rate exceeding 95% across the entire network. They carry more than 4 billion passengers every year, more than the entire global commercial aviation industry carries in a year, according to International Air Transport Association data. Japan invented the bullet train. Japan has 30 kilometers of high-speed track after 60 years of operation. China built 15 times that in 15 years. A factory worker in Wuhan can reach Shanghai in under 2 hours. A student in Xi'an can attend a university in Beijing and treat it like a commute. Cities that were economically isolated from each other for centuries are now part of the same labor market. The copy outgrew the original by an order of magnitude, and it is still growing. The bridges. The suspension bridge is one of the great achievements of Western engineering. The Brooklyn Bridge, the Golden Gate, iconic structures that defined what engineering could do and what a skyline could mean. For most of the 20th century, the longest suspension bridges in the world were American, British, or Japanese. The records moved slowly. Each new record holder was celebrated as the pinnacle of what the technology could achieve. Then China started building. Today, according to the World Bridge Database, China holds every single record in the top 10 longest suspension bridges on Earth. Not most of them, not the majority, all 10, the Yangtze Bridge, the Nansha Bridge, the Hutong Bridge, structures with main spans that exceed what the Golden Gate achieves by hundreds of meters, carrying 6 lanes of traffic and in some cases dual-track railways simultaneously. The Yangtze Bridge in Wuhan has a main span of 700 meters, longer than the Golden Gate by over 500 meters. It carries a 6-lane highway on its upper deck and a 4-lane expressway on its lower deck. It was built in 4 years. And then there is the glass bridge, a technology that existed elsewhere in concept and small novelty installations. China looked at it and did what China does. It built hundreds of them. The longest glass bridge in the world, the highest, the most terrifying. suspended between cliff faces in Zhangjiajie, Hunan, at locations where the drop beneath your feet is not 10 meters or 20 meters, but 300 meters of open air and forest canopy far below. The Zhangjiajie Glass Bridge stretches 430 meters between two cliff faces, 300 meters above the valley floor. Its walkway is entirely transparent. Every step you take, you can see exactly how far you would fall. Engineers designed parts of it to flex and creak underfoot, not a flaw, a deliberate engineering choice, because the designers discovered that the sensation of movement increases the emotional intensity of the crossing, and therefore increases the number of people who talk about it afterward. China did not just build the glass bridge. It understood the psychology of the glass bridge and engineered the experience accordingly. There are now over 100 glass bridges in China, drawing millions of visitors every year. The towers. The skyscraper is an American invention. Chicago, 1885. The home insurance building. 10 floors, a steel frame, the birth of the modern skyline. New York took the idea and built taller and taller through the 20th century until One World Trade Center defined what the word skyscraper meant to the world. In 1990, China had almost no skyscrapers by modern definition. Today, according to the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, China has more skyscrapers than any country on Earth, more than the United States, more than all of Europe combined. The skyline of Shenzhen alone contains more super tall buildings than the entire United States, the skyline of a city that did not exist 40 years ago. But the number is not the story. The story is the speed. In 2012, a company in Changsha built a 15-story building in 6 days using modular prefabrication, manufacturing every component simultaneously in a factory while the foundation was being prepared on site. 2 years later, using the same method, they built a 57-story tower. Fully functional offices, hotel rooms, and residential apartments in 19 days. Structural engineers who reviewed the methodology found that the factory-produced components were by most measures superior in consistency and quality to components produced by conventional site construction. China now adds more skyscrapers to its skyline every year than the rest of the world combined. The ports. For most of the 20th century, one name was synonymous with global trade. Rotterdam, the largest port in the world for decades, the gateway through which Europe's economy breathed. Shipping companies, logistics firms, and economists used Rotterdam as their benchmark for what a world-class port operation looked like. In 2004, Shanghai surpassed Rotterdam as the world's busiest port. Then Shenzhen passed it, then Ningbo Zhoushan, then Guangzhou, then Qingdao, then Tianjin, then Hong Kong. Today, according to the World Shipping Council's annual container port traffic rankings, China has 7 of the world's 10 busiest ports. 7. The country that was building its port infrastructure from almost nothing in the 1980s now handles more container traffic than any other nation by such a significant margin that the comparison barely feels meaningful. The Port of Shanghai alone handles over 47 million container units per year, more than double the volume of the Port of Los Angeles, which is the busiest port in the United States. The Ningbo Zhoushan Port Complex, which most people outside China have never heard of, handles more cargo than any port in the United States, as does Shenzhen, as does Guangzhou. The infrastructure behind these numbers is staggering. Automated container terminals where AI-guided cranes load and unload ships without a human hand touching a single container. Deep water berths capable of accommodating the largest container ships ever built. Vessels over 400 meters long that carry more cargo in a single journey than entire fleets carried a generation ago. Rail connections feeding directly onto the docks so a container can move from ship to train to city without ever sitting in a truck queue. Rotterdam spent a century becoming what it became. China built 7 ports that surpassed it in 30 years, while simultaneously building a manufacturing economy large enough to justify their existence. The solar panel was invented in the United States, Bell Laboratories, 1954. A technology that converted sunlight directly into electricity and promised in theory an unlimited source of clean energy. For the following 5 decades, solar remained expensive, niche, and dependent on government subsidies that made its widespread adoption a policy debate rather than an economic reality. China entered the solar industry and did two things simultaneously. It scaled production until the cost collapsed, and it built installations so large they changed the energy economics of entire regions. Today, China manufactures approximately 80% of the world's solar panels, according to the International Energy Agency. Not a majority, not most of them, 80%. The global solar industry runs on Chinese production capacity. When the cost of solar panels fell by over 90% in the last 15 years, making solar the cheapest source of electricity in human history according to IEA data, the primary driver was Chinese manufacturing scale crushing the cost of every component in the supply chain. In 2010, a solar panel cost roughly $2 per watt to produce. Today, because of Chinese manufacturing scale, it costs less than 20 cents. That price collapse did not happen because the physics of solar panels changed. It happened because China applied industrial scale to a technology the rest of the world was still treating as a specialty product. The Tengger Desert Solar Park in Inner Mongolia covers over 1,000 square kilometers and generates enough electricity to power millions of homes. It is the largest solar installation on Earth, built on land that was otherwise unusable desert, and it is not the only one. China has built floating solar farms on lakes and reservoirs, panels mounted on pontoons above water surfaces, where the water below reduces the panel's operating temperature and increases their efficiency. The United States invented the solar panel. China turned it into the cheapest electricity source in the history of human civilization. Every solar farm built anywhere in the world today, in the United States, in Europe, in Africa, in South America, is almost certainly built with Chinese manufactured panels, benefiting from a cost reduction that Chinese scale made possible. The car. The electric vehicle was an American concept long before it was a Chinese industry. Tesla, Silicon Valley. The idea that the internal combustion engine, the backbone of American industrial identity for a century, could be replaced by a battery and a motor. Tesla built a car that the American automotive industry said consumers would never want and proved them wrong. China watched, then China moved. Today, according to the International Energy Agency's Global EV Outlook, China produces and sells more electric vehicles than every other country on Earth combined. More than the United States, more than Europe, more than Japan and South Korea together. In 2023, 1 in every 3 cars sold in China was electric. The country has more than 800 electric vehicle manufacturers, producing everything from budget city cars, costing less than $10,000 to luxury vehicles competing directly with Tesla on performance. The charging infrastructure that supports this fleet is equally staggering. China has more public electric vehicle charging points than every other country in the world combined. According to IEA infrastructure data, BYD, a Chinese company that Warren Buffett invested in before most Americans had heard of it, became the largest electric vehicle manufacturer in the world by sales in 2023, briefly surpassing Tesla. A company founded in Shenzhen in 1995 by a man who started by making rechargeable batteries for mobile phones. Tesla proved the electric vehicle was desirable. China proved it was inevitable. The signal, 5G, was developed through research and standards processes in which American, European, and South Korean companies were all major contributors. The technology emerged from a global collaborative process. When it came time to deploy it, the assumption across most of the Western world was that rollout would be gradual, expensive, and take the better part of a decade to achieve meaningful coverage. China deployed more 5G base stations in the first 2 years of its rollout than the entire rest of the world deployed in 5 years. By 2023, according to China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, China had over 3 million 5G base stations in operation, more than 80% of the global total. The United States has approximately 100 5G base stations. China has 3 million. That gap is not a technology gap. Both countries had access to the same technology at roughly the same time. It is a question of national will, capital deployment, and the speed at which a decision becomes a structure. Chinese factories connected by private 5G networks operate at automation levels that factories in other countries cannot yet match, because the network reliability required for fully automated manufacturing at scale simply does not exist in most other countries yet. The competitive advantage created by 3 million base stations versus 100,000 is not just a telecommunications story, it is an industrial story. The country with the signal runs the factory. The country with the factory makes the things the world buys. The tunnel boring machine was a Swiss and German engineering achievement. A rotating cutting head that could bore through rock and soil mechanically, replacing the slow and dangerous process of manual drilling and blasting with a continuous automated excavation that was faster, safer, and more precise than anything before it. Switzerland used it to build the Gotthard-based tunnel, 57 kilometers through the Alps, the longest railway tunnel in the world when it opened in 2016, a project that took 17 years to complete. China looked at the tunnel boring machine and ordered them in bulk. China currently operates more tunnel boring machines simultaneously than the rest of the world combined, according to data from the International Tunneling and Underground Space Association. The country has bored through more rock in the last 20 years than any civilization in human history. The tunnels of the Sichuan-Tibet Railway, currently under construction through some of the most geologically challenging terrain on Earth, will constitute, when complete, the most ambitious tunneling project ever attempted. Mountain ranges that took hours to cross by road will be passed through in minutes. Switzerland invented the machine. China bought every machine it could find and put them all to work at the same time. The dam, hydroelectric power, is not a Chinese invention. The principle of using flowing water to spin a turbine and generate electricity has been understood and applied for over a century. The Hoover Dam, the Grand Coulee, the great hydroelectric projects of the American 20th century that powered the growth of the Western United States and proved that moving water could move a civilization. China built the Three Gorges Dam, the largest hydroelectric power station in the world by installed capacity, according to the International Hydropower Association, generating nearly 10% of China's entire electricity supply from a single structure on the Yangtze River, a dam so large that the reservoir it created is visible from space, stretching over 600 kilometers upstream through the gorges that give it its name. The scale exceeds the Hoover Dam by a factor so large the comparison almost feels unfair. The Hoover Dam generates approximately 4 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity per year. The Three Gorges Dam generates approximately 100 billion, the same technology, an output 25 times larger. Next to the dam sits the ship elevator, a chamber that lifts entire vessels 113 meters vertically in 40 minutes. Engineers from the countries that built the original Great Dams visited it and had no precedent to compare it to. The dam that powered the American West inspired the dam that powered central China. The student built something the teacher never imagined. The atom, nuclear power, was an American invention. The Manhattan Project, 1945. The most concentrated scientific and engineering achievement in human history. The United States built the first nuclear reactor, the first nuclear power plant, and for several decades led the world in nuclear energy generation. Then came 3 Mile Island, then Chernobyl, then Fukushima, and across most of the Western world, nuclear power became politically impossible. Plants were decommissioned, plans were canceled. Germany shut down its entire nuclear fleet. The United States stopped building new plants almost entirely. China kept building. Today, according to the World Nuclear Association, China has more nuclear power plants under construction than every other country in the world combined. Not more than any single country, more than all of them added together. Approximately 25 reactors are currently being built in China, compared to a handful across the entire rest of the world. China's newest reactor designs incorporate passive safety systems so advanced they can shut down safely without any external power or human intervention whatsoever. The specific failure mode that caused the Fukushima disaster is physically impossible in these designs. China developed these systems in partnership with Westinghouse, the American company that pioneered commercial nuclear power, using American intellectual property as the foundation and then extending the safety engineering beyond what the original design achieved. The country that invented nuclear power largely stopped building it. China looked at the same technology, solved the safety problems that stopped everyone else. and is now building more of it than the rest of the world combined. The inventor abandoned the invention. China is finishing it. China aims to have 150 nuclear reactors in operation by 2035. The United States currently operates 93 reactors, a number that has been declining for decades as old plants retire and almost none are built to replace them. China will within a decade operate more nuclear capacity than the country that invented it. The verdict? Here is what the record actually shows. Japan invented the bullet train. China built 45 kilometers of it, more than double the rest of the world combined. Western engineers built the first great suspension bridges. China now holds all 10 of the world's longest. America invented the skyscraper. China builds more of them per year than the rest of the world combined and assembled a 57-story tower in 19 days. Rotterdam defined the modern port. China now operates 7 of the world's 10 busiest. America invented the solar panel in 1954. China manufactures 80% of the world's supply and collapsed the cost by 90%. Tesla proved electric vehicles were desirable. China made them inevitable and now outsells every other country combined. The world developed 5G together. China built 3 million towers, while America built 100,000. Switzerland invented the tunnel boring machine. China operates more of them simultaneously than everyone else combined. The Hoover Dam inspired a generation of engineers. The Three Gorges Dam produces 25 times more electricity. America invented nuclear power and then walked away from it. China is building more reactors than all other countries combined. You can call that copying. You can call it borrowing. Call it whatever makes you comfortable. But there is another word for what happens when you take an idea and execute it so far beyond the original vision that the inventors come to study what you built. That word is mastery. China did not just take the world's best ideas. China showed the world what those ideas were actually capable of. And the world, including every country that invented everything on this list, is still working out what that means for the next 50 years. Here is the question worth sitting with. If the original inventors had executed at this scale from the beginning, would China have had anything left to master? Drop your honest answer in the comments. If this video changed how you see the world, hit like and subscribe, because we cover these shifts every single week before everyone else catches on.